We're going to be looking at Hebrews chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. So in Hebrews chapter 1, it was shown how Jesus was superior to the angels. Hebrews chapter 2 says, therefore, because Jesus is superior, heed his message. Pay attention to him. Continue to persevere in your faith. Jesus is the better Adam who succeeded in every way where Adam has failed. He has secured a salvation for his people. So therefore, holy brothers, you who share in a heavenly calling, therefore, you who are devoted to and set apart to God, and you who share in a heavenly calling, future glory awaits you. This is what he wants you to do. He wants you to consider Jesus. And in this section, he's going to be showing how Jesus is superior to Moses. Moses is great. Moses is faithful. Moses has glory associated with him. But Jesus is greater. Jesus is the faithful Son. So we're going to see that here in this section. Jesus is the apostle and the high priest of our confession. So this idea of apostle is just carrying the idea of he's the sent one. He's the sent one and the high priest. He's the mediator between God and man. So Jesus is the one who was sent as the mediator to accomplish salvation for his people. So he wants you to consider Jesus, and he was faithful to him who appointed him, right? He was appointed as high priest. Hebrews is going to make that argument as we continue. Just as Moses was also faithful in all of God's house. And he is going to illustrate how Jesus is faithful and superior to Moses by giving an illustration in verses 3 and 4. And then in verses 5 and 6, he's going to draw some comparisons followed by an application. So, for Jesus has been counted worthy of more glory than Moses. There it is. Jesus is counted as being more worthy than the glory of Moses. Moses had glory associated with him, but Jesus is significantly more glorious. Why? Well, here's an illustration. As much more glory as the builder of a house has more honor than the house itself, right? The person who builds a house, it receives more glory than the house itself. Right? That makes sense. Then he gives parentheses here. For every house is built by someone, but the builder of all things is God. And there's a sense, and we've seen this in Hebrews 1, Hebrews 2, Jesus is the creator and sustainer of all things. Jesus is the creator of the house itself, right? So Jesus is superior to Moses, just as the builder of a house is superior to the house itself. So that's the illustration. Now he gives reasons for this in verse 5. Now Moses was faithful in all of God's house. So he was in God's house, right? He was a member of God's house, and he was faithful in it. And he was faithful as a servant, which is an exalted title, right? He is a servant who was faithful, and he testified to the things that were to be spoken of later. He was pointing forward to something greater than himself. Then you have this contrast here. But Christ is faithful over God's house, right? So Moses was faithful in God's house. Christ is faithful over God's house. Christ is sovereign over the people of God, over God's house as a son, right? So Moses was a servant. Jesus is contrasted here as being the Son. And as we saw in Hebrews chapter 1 and elsewhere, Moses testified about the things that were to be spoken of later. Jesus is the fulfillment of those things. So Moses was pointing forward to a greater reality, and Jesus is that greater reality. And then he ends with an exhortation. He says, And we are his house if we indeed hold fast to our confidence and our boasting and hope. So faith here is seen to be active and living. It's not just a one and done kind of thing. I believe then and I'm safe. No, faith is a ongoing, continual, daily thing. And it's that person, this text says, who will be a member of the household of God. So we hold fast to our confidence, and our confidence is what? Jesus. Jesus is the apostle. Jesus is the mediator. Jesus is the one who is faithful. Jesus is the one who has more glory than Moses. And boasting in our hope. Oh, we have a hope to boast in because of what Jesus has accomplished, don't we? We have a future with Christ in the heavenly celestial city, and we should continue to look forward to that heavenly city secured by Jesus Christ. So church, be encouraged as you continue to walk the Christian faith, the Christian life in faith, as you repent daily, as you look to Jesus, who is superior to Moses. And Moses was great, but Jesus is even greater. Be encouraged as you remember that you share in a heavenly calling secured by the mediator, the high priest, Jesus Christ. Be encouraged to continue to press on in your faith in the day-to-day actions of your life. See you guys next time.